Welcome into Off the Hook Sports. I am your host, Caleb Calhoun. A lot to get to today as we have an update based on some insider reporting on the Tennessee football quarterback battle. We're going to give you a little bit of news on that. It may not be breaking news, but I think it reveals something that I was suspicious of from the start, and I want to give you guys my thoughts on that. We have a lot of defensive line coverage today. Rodney Garner spoke with the media yesterday about the interior defensive line, and we also have more news about the edge rushers and who can replace James Pierce. We're going to talk about both of those things, and we're going to discuss what all that means going forward. A lot there. A lot of interesting stuff happening. So we're going to kind of discuss exactly what we think about the defensive line and everything happening on that front. We have Diego Pavia, of all people, is deciding to respond to the controversy surrounding everything he has said with regard to Tennessee, and I think he is lying. That's going to be what the H, because it is what the H. And then finally, could college football RedZone be coming to ESPN with the new NFL deal? We're going to discuss that and a couple of things. Breakout players on offense. That is kind of a big deal that's sticking out to me. Breakout players on offense. We're going to discuss. We're going to do hot or cold. Which player that was on the team last year and didn't start will be a breakout star this year. We're going to play hot or cold with that, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications, tell a friend. We broadcast live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Let's get rolling with today's tough question, and we start with Tennessee's quarterback battle. Pete Nakos has revealed some insider news about the Tennessee football quarterback battle that is going on right now. As we know, with Nico Iamaleava transferring to UCLA, Tennessee brought in graduate transfer Joey Aguilar, who is competing with Jake Merklinger and George McIntyre for the starting job. Merklinger is a returning player who was a backup last year, was not even a second teamer, and McIntyre was a fringe five-star true freshman, is one, but took part in spring ball. According to Pete Nakos, and according to his sources, the battle is already 1 weekend down to Aguilar and Merklinger. Nakos wrote recently, quote, Tennessee's competition seems to be a battle between Joey Aguilar and Jake Merklinger. True freshman George McIntyre has been running with the third team to this point. Now that follows, obviously, Austin Price saying that, quote, I think the distribution of reps will determine how real his opportunity is, talking about McIntyre's chances to win the starting job. And he says, and again, we're not going to know that because we're not in there for a lot of that stuff. But I think for George, I continue to be told he's absolutely in the race, but I would still consider him option 3 just because his weight and experience and all those things. Speaking of his weight and experience, I want to point out that George McIntyre is 6'6", 195 pounds. So I totally understand the issues with his weight. That leads us to today's tough question, which is this. Is Josh Heupel, given the fact that reportedly George McIntyre is already running with the third string, just barely a week into fall camp, does he even have a fair quarterback competition going on? Or has he already made his decision over who's going to start and the competition is just a show? That is today's tough question. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We have it up as a poll question now. You go ahead and vote. Is Josh Heupel running a fair quarterback race? I got a few reasons why I don't believe he is. And you guys can give me your comments on this, but I have a very strong feeling he's not. And here's why. And I'm going to break it down. One, if you're barely a week into fall camp and George McIntyre is already with the third team, this is not an open competition. You're lying if you say it is. Okay, if you're not giving him any first team reps, I mean, that's fine. You only have so many physical reps you can have, so you probably already have an idea of who you want to have in competition for the starting job. But don't pretend that you're giving George McIntyre a fair chance to win that job. You're not. I thought when Nico transferred Josh Heupel should have done everything he could to get McIntyre into football shape to start this year as a true freshman and just go forward with him. Looks like he didn't want to do that. I don't think there's a fair competition with that. Point number 2. We all remember the Joe Milton Hendon Hooker situation. Back in 2021, when Josh Heupel took over, he inherited a roster that had Hendon Hooker, that had 5-star Harrison Bailey, that had Brian Maurer, and that had Kaden Salter, a 4-star freshman that had committed. Kaden Salter now looks like he's about to ball out of Colorado, by the way. Josh Heupel dismissed Kaden Salter from the team for minor weed charges, making it, I mean, yes, it was 2 arrests, so I understand it, but they were both weed charges, and it just felt like this was an easy way for Heupel to show discipline and get rid of a guy he didn't really want to be his quarterback anyway. He then, in the fall, after spring practice, brings in Joe Milton, a Michigan transfer, and immediately Joe Milton wins the starting job in fall camp over all the quarterbacks who were there. Harrison Bailey then transfers, Brian Maurer transfers. Joe Milton wins it over Hendon Hooker. 2 weeks in, Joe Milton gets hurt. Hendon Hooker comes in. It was very clear that Hendon Hooker was the better quarterback from the start. I don't think Hendon Hooker ever had a fair chance to win that starting job. I've always believed that from the start, and I've been very, very critical of Josh Heupel for that moment. There's that. And then, honestly, there's a little bit of politicking going on that makes me believe Josh Heupel wants open competition next year when Faison Brandon is going to be on the roster. Faison Brandon is obviously a 5-star out of North Carolina. I think that Faison Brandon is going to be in more football shape than either George McIntyre or Nico Iamaleava were when they committed. If you guys are curious, Faison Brandon is already 6'3.5", 200 pounds, already weighs more than McIntyre or Iamaleava did, is a 5-star quarterback actually across the board now. Taking all that into account, I think Josh Heupel wants a complete open competition next year, which actually leads me to believe that not only is there not a fair competition for George McIntyre, there's not one for Jake Merklinger. I think Aguilar's winning the starting job. Why? This is Aguilar's last year. If Merklinger wins the job, you can't have the open competition next year with Brandon and McIntyre when both are behind him. And if McIntyre wins the job, you can't have it with McIntyre and Brandon when Brandon's behind him. And at least Joey Aguilar will be gone after this year. So that way he can have a full-on open competition next spring to see who he wants to be his starting quarterback, and he'll go with that guy. There was some politicking. I think that's what he's doing. This is another try to stay afloat year with Joe Milton, like he tried with Joe Milton in 2023 before he moves on. So no, I don't believe there is a fair chance for anybody but Joey Aguilar to win that starting job. That does not mean Josh Heupel is beyond making a change in the middle of the season if he has to. But I refuse to believe that Josh Heupel is giving anybody a fair chance at winning this starting quarterback job. Now, some people will correct me because recently Ollie Lane was on a podcast and said that Joe Milton did outperform Hendon Hooker in in fall camp in 2021. I'm sorry. I believe Ollie fully on what he saw, but I don't believe that was actually true to the coaches. I think Josh Heupel was telling himself that Joe Milton outperformed Hendon Hooker and was giving him better chances to outperform Hendon Hooker. I don't see how you could see what you saw in the games and think that there was any way Joe Milton outperformed him in practice. I just don't believe it. I had heard from some sources that Hendon Hooker actually was outperforming Joe Milton. I had heard that Josh Heupel nearly lost the team by picking Joe Milton because the team had gravitated so much more towards Hendon Hooker. And I also saw Hendon Hooker's proven production at Virginia Tech versus Joe Milton's at Michigan. So I never thought Hendon Hooker had a fair chance to win that job. It was given to Joe Milton. It wasn't earned. And that's what leads me to also believe this is not a fair competition. Today's Tough Question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The poll question up is Josh Heupel running a fair quarterback race, and it was a dead heat at 50-50 for a minute. It looks now like the yeses are pulling away 56-44, but it is tough. It is a tough debate. I understand it. I am still leaning No, he's not running a fair quarterback race. You can hate me for that all day. I refuse to believe he's running a fair quarterback race given everything that has been happening, everything we've been reading about. I'm sorry. Yes, maybe that's a hot take. Maybe that is maybe that's being unfair to Josh Heupel, but it's hard for me to look at everything going on and think, you know what? Josh Heupel is running a fair quarterback race. I just can't bring myself to say that. So with that in mind, no, he's not running a fair quarterback race. That's my take on it. We'll kind of see how things play out going forward, but I think it's already a done deal. Joey Aguilar's won this job. Heupel said he wanted to have a starting quarterback named early on in fall camp, and looking at it, how are you going to do that if you have an open, fair quarterback race and then you already have George McIntyre doing what he's doing? I just don't believe for 1 second that Josh Heupel is running a fair quarterback competition. And maybe that's unfortunate, but maybe Josh Heupel is thinking long-term for the program. And when you take that into account, you got to be a little fair. And so I'm not going to hold it too much against Josh Heupel that he is doing this. What this means going forward, we will see. At the same time, though, we have to be fair and say that it's looking more and more like Joey Aguilar is going to win the starting job based on what the data is showing. I don't think Heupel ever really runs a fair quarterback race, to be honest with you guys. I think Josh Heupel always has his plan in place before anything. So, that's my take. You guys may disagree with me on that, but I understand that Josh Heupel will. I do believe that Josh Heupel is going to. I can pretty much predict. I bet right now Josh Heupel is going to name Joey Aguilar the starting quarterback before it's all said and done. Portions of the program are brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chatwith2tsmortgage.com. Chatwith2tsmortgage.com. Moving on. We've got some news surrounding the Tennessee defensive line. And this is going to be 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. We get rolling on 4 Downs with Tennessee's defensive line. Rodney Gardner and Coach Chop, Lavarn Harbin, spoke with the media yesterday to discuss the defensive line situation. And there were some major takeaways from me about the defensive line as a whole based on what was said. I'm going to go through all of those real quick, and I'm going to say what I believe about each of the groups because some things were very interesting and some were concerning, but some were a good sign for Tennessee. We're going to break down what all of this means. It is 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford. And first, we give the message from Cooper Mays. Cooper Mays here. Like and subscribe. For those who are new to the show, the inside joke, our co-host Dave Hooker, who is out right now, he has a board that has a Cooper Mays audio that I can't use, so that's why I say I do the Cooper Mays impression. I hope he doesn't hate me for that. But yes, hit like and subscribe, and now we go Coop here. First down. Biggest takeaways on the defensive line that I learned yesterday. The one defensive end position on the defensive line, fully set. Dominic Bailey has apparently become a breakout star on the defensive line. He was part of the overall rotation last year, to be fair, but he apparently has had a huge leap this year for Tennessee, which is a big deal. Dominic Bailey last year, to be fair, breaking him down, he did have 25 total tackles, 10 of which were solo, along with 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, recovered 2 fumbles, and forced a fumble. On the defensive line, Dominic Bailey is a very, very good player. Tennessee returns all 3 of its defensive ends who play up on the line from last year, because joining Dominic Bailey is also Tyree West, who is part of that group. He had 16 total tackles, 8 solo, 5 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. Tyree West and Dominic Bailey were both 4 stars coming out. They should both take a huge leap forward. And Tyree Weathersby, who was highly touted too coming out of high school, is back on the roster as well. He didn't play much last year. He played sparingly, but the depth is still there on the defensive end. And with Dominic Bailey reportedly becoming a leader and taking a huge step forward, Tennessee should have a very big advantage there. I think they will be better than last year on the defensive end spot on the defensive line, which is a huge deal.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, second down. The defensive tackle spots. Rodney Garner said they're still looking for their 4th defensive tackle. Now, that's a concern. We have to point this out. Last year, Tennessee had 6 defensive tackles play at least 200 plays. We're talking Elijah Simmons, Omar Norman-Lott, Amari Thomas, Bryson Eason, David Hobbs, and Jackson Moy. Amari Thomas, Omar Norman-Lott, and Elijah Simmons are all gone. Now, can Bryson Eason, David Hobbs, and Jackson Moy replace just those 3 guys in production? I think they can. While I do think Elijah Simmons was the most raw talent of all of that 6, I think he just couldn't stay healthy. I think Jackson Moy has that type of potential from a different type of player because he's not the exact same build. He's shorter, but I think Jackson Moy can be that type of an impact player. And David Hobbs and Bryson Eason is the same type of veteran that Amari Thomas was. And David Hobbs has Omar Norman-Lott potential. So I actually think all 3 of them can be exactly as good as those top they were last year. But that means the depth behind them, will that be as good? Will that be the question? Because if those 3 have to replace the top 3, who can replace Bryson Eason, Omar Norman-Lott? Who can replace Bryson Eason, David Hobbs, and Jackson Moy as the backups? Well, Tennessee did land Josh Shell, a transfer from Grand Valley State from Division II. Look, I trust Rodney Garner's talent evaluation. I don't think they would have landed him for no reason. So I do have faith in him. There's also Jamal Wallace, who was a 3-star JUCO transfer 2 years ago, who should have experience and be ready to go. Then there's Nathan Robinson, a 3-star from the 2023 class. Isaiah Campbell's a 3-star. In this class, you have Isaiah Campbell, Charles House III, and Ethan Utley. Ethan Utley is a 4-star defensive tackle. Who do I think is going to be the other 3 in the rotation? I'm going with Josh Shell, Nathan Robinson, and Jamal Wallace. Those are my 3 guys. I think Josh Heupel does love veteran leadership. And so I think the defensive tackles, there's some development that's required. And so I think the true freshmen aren't going to be in there. Can they offset Moy, Hobbs, and Eason, though? I have to lean no. I don't think they can. I'm sorry. I think that there's just some issues there. So I have to lean that I don't think they can offset those guys. And that's kind of going to be a bit of a concern for the defensive line. However, then comes the biggest elephant in the room.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Okay, here we go. Here is one of my hotter takes. Can Tennessee be better at the Leo spot with James Pierce gone? Tennessee loses their all-world edge rusher in James Pierce. I'm going to say, believe it or not, yes, they can be better with James Pierce, at the edge rusher spot, than they were last year with James Pierce because of the talent they have coming back. First of all, Joshua Josephs is coming back. He is going to be more experienced. Josephs has to be the complementary edge rusher, though. Josephs can't be the main edge rusher. That has always been an issue with him. So where does that leave Tennessee? Well, that leaves Tennessee with, obviously, Jordan Ross or Caleb Herring. I think Caleb Herring is going to be the 3rd edge rusher in this, even though he's a junior. He's more of a complimentary edge rusher similar to Joshua Josephs, but Josephs is the senior. And I think Jordan Ross, the sophomore, has a huge breakout year. You heard a lot of people tout him yesterday. You heard one of the big things, Coach Chop said Jordan has matured very much so on and off the field, and a great job of doing maintenance work and a great job in the weight room too. So sometimes he's lifting twice a day. He's working out in his own way with drills on the weekend. And the biggest thing is just living in the training room because he plays so hard, man. He's unbelievable. He plays hard. He's carrying his weight really good. And he's just a focused young man that he wants to be right now. And it sounds like there was a switch that flipped for Ross. Now, Chop denies that. He says, quote, "I don't think it was a switch. I think it was him trying to feel his way, how college life is on and off the field. And once he got that part figured out and aligned with his goals, he moved on to getting better on and off the field." And then Jordan Ross himself, there are stories that he is talking about right now where he basically is acknowledging that, no, he has changed his tune. He's 6'5", 245 pounds, and he admitted, by the way, he said, I'd say last year I didn't really take it that serious. There were so many guys in front of me, I didn't think I was going to get my chance, but this year I've kind of matured and took up another role, and I've been trying to get better because we've got guys this year that this is their last year. Look, maybe that's not something you want to hear from Jordan Ross, but that's something that we heard from Jalen Hyatt, and then Jalen Hyatt won the Biletnikoff Award. So with that, I think they will be better this year because of Jordan Ross. Now, taking all that into account, 4 Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. 4th Down coming up next.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer.
Right now, get 0% APR, 0 down, and 0 payments for 90 days on select models, plus 2 years complimentary maintenance.
Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike. All SEC Center, Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
4th down. Will Tennessee be better on the defensive line this year than last year? You guys ready for this? Hang on to your seats. Yes. They will not be as deep in the interior at defensive tackle, which is crucial. So Tim Banks will have to draw up some more blitz packages and have Aaron Carter and Jeremiah Thielander help with that. That's okay because they're going to be much better at linebacker. But they have more experience at the defensive end spot because everybody's back on that spot. They have bodies that can still be part of the defensive tackle depth, even if there's a drop-off. Most notably, the edge rusher spot will be better. Jordan Ross will be the superstar, breakout star, better than James Pierce. You will be seeing James Who by the end of the year. I'm telling you guys that right now about Jordan Ross. Taking that all into account, yes, I am insisting that the edge rushers will be better in 2022, which will make the defensive line as a whole better in 2025, which will make the defensive line as a whole better in 2025. So it is, watch out. There is going to be some very intriguing things happening going forward as a result of that. Portions of the program are brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat for 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. When we come back, we're going to discuss the potential breakout stars on offense, and that'll be hot or cold. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem. Oh, boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink. If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Caleb here. Hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn on your notifications, tell a friend. Obviously building something great here at Off the Hook Sports, and we want you to be a part of it. It is time for this day in Tennessee football history, and it's brought to you by Joe Newber Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newber Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. On this day in Tennessee history, Casey Clausen arrived on campus in 2000 to enter the quarterback battle to succeed T. Martin 25 years ago with A.J. Suggs and Joey Matthews. However, Clausen, who would have been the starter, suffered a shoulder injury due to a workout that's not even required for quarterbacks to do, which kept him off the field until he made his debut in the third Saturday as the starter. As the third Saturday and the third. Kept him off the field until he made his debut against Louisiana Monroe, which Tennessee won 70-3. And then a month later, he got his first start against Alabama in the third Saturday in October and led Tennessee to a 22-10 win. Had Clausen started at the beginning of the year, there's a very good chance Tennessee wins the SEC East that year. They likely would have beaten Florida. And had they beaten Florida, they would have won the East and gone and played for the SEC title, in which case they would have played Auburn, an Auburn team they were probably better than. That was kind of a down year for the SEC. And they probably would have beaten Auburn. So Clausen suffering that shoulder injury arguably cost Tennessee an SEC title because A.J. Suggs lost them that game. This day in Tennessee football history brought to you by Joe Newber Collision Center. That's right.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
All right, let's get rolling with Tennessee's offense. The Vols have 9 new starters on offense this year. They're going to have 9 new starters. The only returning starters they have are Miles Kitzelman at tight end and Lance Hurd at left tackle. Chris Brazzell, I consider a semi-returning starter. Chris Brazzell and Deshaun Bishop, I consider semi-returning starters. They were reliable players for Tennessee last year, impact players, but they weren't officially starters, but they played enough to not fit this list of what I'm going to say right now, which is who will be the breakout offensive stars for Tennessee this year. Now, to be a breakout star, you have to have been on the team last year and had a very minimal role, meaning you barely played. But you could be in the rotation this year. And this is going to be hot or cold. It's brought to you by Sports Treasures for carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Facebook.com/Sports Treasures TN. Facebook.com/Sports Treasures TN. Hot or cold coming in now. Which breakout stars will there be on offense? Tennessee has to replace all their receivers, 4 or 5 offensive linemen, their all-world running back, and their quarterback. Obviously, their quarterback, Joey Aguilar, is not eligible, and I just told you Deshaun Bishop is not eligible. Who is eligible? Peyton Lewis. Will Peyton Lewis be a breakout star? I'm hot on that. I'm hot on Peyton Lewis being a breakout star. I told you guys, I think he will win the starting job. Now, I did predict he'd win the starting job over Dylan Sampson last year. I was wrong. One, because Dylan Sampson was way better than I thought he would be. But two, because Peyton Lewis was battling an injury the whole year. But I am hot this year on Peyton Lewis being a superstar running back. Peyton Lewis will be a key player. Hot on him. Ethan Davis. Can he be a breakout star? The complimentary tight end to Miles Kitselman with Holden Stays gone. Yes, I'm hot on him. He's a better athlete than Miles Kitselman. Miles Kitselman will be the starter, but Miles Kitselman is hurt to start the season. With that in mind, I am high on Ethan Davis being a breakout star for Tennessee. Ethan Davis has rare physical abilities, and he was a highly touted prospect in the 2023 recruiting class. I think it is now time that Ethan Davis become a breakout player. On the offensive line. Now, of the new starters on the offensive line, I told you Lance Hurd's a returning starter. He's not eligible. But three of the four new starters were not on the team last year. And I'm projecting Sam Pendleton and Wendell Moe to be the starting guards and David Sanders as the starting right tackle. Pendleton and Moe were transfers. Sanders is a 5-star freshman. None of them can fit this list. Who could fit this list? A few other guys I want to name. Shamarad Umarov. I'm cold on him. I think he's got potential, but I do think that there's a little bit more development that's going to have to happen. I think he'll be a rotational guy this year, but I think that's about as far as it's going to go for him. Max Anderson. Again, cold on him. I think he'll be a backup, but I think he'll be a decent player long-term, and he'll be a serviceable guy for depth. William Satterwhite. I'm sizzling on him. Sizzling. I am extremely high. I'm extremely hot on William Satterwhite becoming a breakout player for Tennessee this year on the offensive side of the ball. I don't see any reason he shouldn't be. I think his potential is through the roof. Now, I'm setting up a poll question real quick, and we'll have it after a quick message from Sports Treasures, but it's going to be, who will be Tennessee's biggest breakout player this year who was on the team but didn't? That's too much. Who will be Tennessee's biggest breakout player this year? And we'll say on offense. And I'm going to name Peyton Lewis. How about which reserve from 2024? Which reserve on the 2024 Vols will be Tennessee's biggest breakout player this year on offense? I'm going to go Peyton Lewis. I'm going to go William Satterwhite. I'm going to go Ethan Davis. And obviously now we're going to move to the receiver spot. First, a quick message from Sports Treasures.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
All right, breakout players on offense at the receiver spot. I already told you guys Chris Brazel's not available or eligible for this. So let's name the other guys. Tennessee loses all three starting receivers from last year: Brew McCoy, Dante Thornton, Squirrel White. I've given you guys my hot take. I think they should be better this year at receiver because Brew McCoy last year was coming off of season-ending broken leg injury from the year before, which forced him to medically retire from football because he didn't get drafted in the NFL. He wasn't able to dictate coverage, and he was the only receiver experienced in the system who could dictate coverage last year. That slowed everything down. On top of that, Dante Thornton was the complementary piece on the other side. He was coming off a season-ending injury, and then Squirrel White was the slot receiver playing with a separated shoulder the whole year. Caused major issues. That's why Chris Brazel got into the rotation, and he's the one returning starter this year. So he's not eligible. I'll get to name one in a second. First, Braylon Staley, breakout player. I'm cold on that. The reason I'm cold on that is because Braylon Staley is going to split time with Boo Carter in the slot this year because those are some promises made to Boo Carter. So I think because of that, I'm cold on Braylon Staley being a breakout player. Mike Matthews. As a breakout player, I think this one's obvious. I think Mike Matthews is going to be a breakout player. I think Mike Matthews is going to be a superstar immediately. You'll see him with all-American potential. Joey Aguilar is going to throw it up and let him make a play, and look at Mike Matthews is going to be elite for the Vols this year. What about Trey Weary, the walk-on? Look, Tennessee has 3 true freshman receivers. We told you they aren't eligible for this list, and Travis Smith Jr., Rodarius Jackson, and Joaquin Dotson. It's also true that receivers, particularly wideouts, have a hard time learning this system, so they wouldn't play anyway. They also have a transfer in Amari Jefferson, who is also hurt and won't play likely this year, and he wouldn't be eligible since he's a transfer. So if anything goes wrong with Matthews, Brazel, or Staley, particularly Matthews or Brazel, the only returning wide receiver they have is Trey Weary, who is a walk-on. Could he be a breakout player? No, I'm cold on that. Trey Weary's not going to be a breakout player. Sorry, not happening. Totally cold on him. What about, let's move to a few other guys real quick. Now, the poll question up, which reserve on the 2024 Vols will be Tennessee's biggest breakout player this year on offense? Peyton Lewis, William Satterwhite, Ethan Davis, Mike Matthews. 62% of you say Mike Matthews, 25% say Ethan Davis, 12% say Peyton Lewis, 0% say William Satterwhite. I'm with you guys. It's going to be Mike Matthews. It's going to be Mike Matthews. He's going to be the biggest breakout star on this team. I'm very high on that. Now, a couple of players that were mentioned back on the offensive line real quick that we need to get to. Bennett Warren, Gage Ginther, and Jesse Perry, and Brian Grant, and Jeremiah Hurd are all offensive linemen who are returning reserves from last year's team. I do think Warren and Ginther and Grant could be rotational guys, but I don't think they'll be breakout players. I can't see that happening. So I'm actually cold on them. Also, Jesse Perry, I don't know if that was just coach speak that he could surge towards a potential starting role this year. I could be wrong. I'm seeing a lot of touting of him, but I just don't see how if he does become a starting role, then if he does become a starter, I mean, he has put on 50 pounds since arriving at Knoxville, which is a huge boost. But if he does, that's kind of a bit of an indictment on the transfers Tennessee went after, which they got to make Nico Iamaleava happy. Now, here's one we haven't named, and it goes back to the quarterback battle race we talked about to open the show. What about Jake Merklinger? He was a reserve last year. Could he be a breakout player this year? If he's the starting quarterback, he would be. The answer is no, because he's not going to be the starter. Josh Heupel's not going to give him a fair shake. I've told you guys that. I still stick with that. That's still firmly my belief, is that Josh Heupel is not going to give Jesse Perry a fair shake whatsoever. That's kind of where I land on this. Now, as far as transfers and newcomers that are most likely to make the biggest impact, I would say obviously Joey Aguilar stands out. David Sanders is the biggest one, but that's a topic for another day. Specifically, who will be the biggest breakout stars? Mike Matthews, Peyton Lewis, Ethan Davis, and William Satterwhite are to me the surefire breakout stars for what's going on this year for Tennessee. I don't really see anybody else that's going to make that list. Again, very high on all those guys. We'll see how it all plays out going forward, but I think that those are the top guys. Now, I will also say that I'll address David Speak's point. Brent Hubb saying he's legitimately being considered for the starting right guard spot. I think you're referring to Jesse Perry, David, and I think that's possible. I just have a hard time believing it. Look, there's a lot of, and it's funny of what Josh Caleb thinks you're lying. Now you know what Donald Trump feels like. I do think Josh Heupel's lying. I think Josh Heupel lies a lot. I think he's very cagey and he lies more than most coaches. So with that in mind, yes, I don't believe Josh Heupel when certain players are touted, and I think Jesse Perry could be on that list. But we'll see how it all goes. Portions of the program are brought to you by HoundDogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. HTKnoxville.com. HTKnoxville.com. When we come back, we're going to address what Diego Pavia said about Tennessee fans' backlash to him. That'll be What the H. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Hello, ma'am. Here to look at that plumbing problem? Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink. If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Caleb Calhoun here. Hit that like and subscribe button. We are represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Play to win, why settle, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Also, we broadcast you live every weekday from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. We get rolling with Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia has decided to respond to the backlash that he's receiving for his comments related to Tennessee that have all made news in the offseason. Diego Pavia made news back in the summer for doing a lot of talking. Now, for those who don't remember, Diego Pavia was the one who sued the NCAA to be able to play for another year of college football, despite being 135 years old. I'm kidding. He's 24 years old, but he has played 2 years of junior college, 2 years at New Mexico State, and 1 year at Vanderbilt, and he sued and won for a 6th year of eligibility. Diego Pavia, this offseason, after winning that lawsuit, decided to talk a lot towards Tennessee. He said, quote, Vanderbilt's going to run the state of Tennessee. He said he expects to win the national title. Well, then more came out during the SEC Netflix docuseries Any Given Saturday, where Diego Pavia said, and Clark Lee were both talking about how they are going to beat Tennessee and how they can beat Tennessee. And this was during the locker room before this was in the locker room before Vanderbilt played Tennessee. And Clark Lee actually jumped in on it. So Clark Lee is fueling this culture. I just want to play a little bit of what we saw from that time period. It was kind of interesting when you think about it. So I'm just trying to pull it up real quick to see what we could do. Let me see if I can get this up. Yep, I can get this up. All right, give me 1 second, guys. This was what was said. Not just Diego Pavia, but Clark Lee said this too. So just watch this real quick.
I want to fucking beat Tennessee, and I need everyone to be on the same page.
We can beat Tennessee literally any given Saturday.
We're not leaving that stadium on Saturday without a win.
They think they're going to destroy us. Fuck every single one of them dudes, you know. We're going to win this game at all costs.
You're low.
There were a couple of, I kept that muted a little bit because there were a couple of F-bombs in there from the Netflix documentary. But that was Diego Pavia in the locker room before Tennessee played Vanderbilt. By the way, Tennessee won 36-23, and the game wasn't even that close. Well, Diego Pavia has decided to respond to the backlash he's been getting. He joined the Paul Feinbaum show to talk about his comments specifically directed at Tennessee. And somehow didn't seem to remember him saying that about the Vols. Here was his quote. Quote, "I don't have my own Netflix account or anything like that, so I haven't been able to watch the whole series or anything. But we got to watch our episode, like 2 of the episodes, here as a team. Well, honestly, we're in camp, so I'm not on social media. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't hear anything when we watched it as a team. So maybe I'll have to go back and check it out when I get a Netflix account." I don't know what's a bigger lie. That Diego Pavia didn't hear what he said when he watched the documentary as a team, or the idea that he's not paying attention to this type of backlash. Let's be very clear on this. You know, when you say what you say in the locker room, that this is going to be picked up for the Netflix docuseries. Diego Pavia said that in the interview room, in the confessional, knowing this was going to be picked up and put in the series. He volunteered it. He wanted it out there. So for him to pretend like, I don't have a Netflix account, I just don't know what's going on, I'm just not there. I don't like when players gaslight like that. Own what you said, bro. I don't even mind the trash talking to a certain degree. I troll it yesterday because I'll talk about the accuracy of it and whether or not it's true. But own what you said. To try to be like, I'm focused on camp, I don't really want to talk anymore. Please, you did all that chirping back in the offseason. You did all that chirping for the Netflix documentary. Now you all of a sudden don't want to talk. You want to say, oh, nope, that's not me. That's not happening to me. That's not what I've been doing. Really? Really? This is what people hate about sports athletes a lot of times, guys. It's something that I despise. I'll just be honest. I really don't like athletes that play the whole like, who, me? I wasn't talking. This isn't happening. And I take this from sports to politics to wherever. I hate people. I don't hate people. I hate it when people in these fields make you sound ridiculous for questioning them on something or creating a narrative that they deny is there, and then it turns out to be there. Diego Pavia is doing this blatantly. I don't have a Netflix account. I don't know what's going on. I'm not so sure Tennessee fans aren't just like focused on me. I don't get it. Please. He's totally paying attention to what Tennessee fans are saying. He is petty on this, okay? So I think it's absolutely ridiculous for him to say what he said. All right, now a couple of notes on this. Unsung Ghost Pavia buying vacuums from Connor Stallions. Love that joke. Derek says Pavia had two egos, and the one who beat Bama and the one who got silenced by Tennessee. I actually think that's true. David Speaks says, hope Pavia stays healthy because he plays a brutal schedule before they play us. Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. Fandy Dandy is asking what episode was that. That was actually episode 7, I believe, Fandy Dandy, if you want to go take a look at that. Now, look, Diego Pavia, I'm not knocking his moxie. I think he's actually a very good quarterback for Vanderbilt. The fact what he did last year with them at Clark Lee, you saw Clark Lee continuing to build that program, by the way. They were getting better year over year, and they didn't just go 7-6 last year. They did just go 7-6, but don't forget this. If you take out a very fluke play at Georgia State and an overtime loss at Missouri, we're talking about a team that's 9-4. Now, the way they finished the season was overrated, and I've talked about that. Diego Pavia was overrated with how he finished the season. People were overvaluing that Georgia Tech game because his last 3 games, he was not good, okay? And that should be actually his last 4 games. Diego Pavia didn't have a good regular season game after 27-24 loss to Texas in late October. After that, he really wasn't that great. But even though he wasn't that great, they did finish 7-6, and they got everybody back this year. They still got Tim Beck back as their offensive coordinator. So they are dangerous. I'm giving him a lot of credit. But don't gaslight me and pretend that you weren't thinking about Tennessee when you said what you said right there, because that's a total lie. And What the H is brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. A Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Fandy Dandy jumps in and says Pavia is a very likable player. If you've seen his Bussin' with the Boys interview, look, Fandy Dandy. And by the way, we're glad you're on this chat with us. I welcome fans of different teams all the time. we want to expand beyond just Tennessee, a lot of it, and cover a lot more college football. I would say I actually don't deny that. I have a lot of respect for his moxie, and Diego Pavia showed a lot of good things about himself last year. At the same time, he didn't finish the year strong. He volunteered a lot of trash talking just after he came back, after he won his lawsuit to be able to come back to play another year. And we're ignoring the fact that he's coasting off a very, very good October. Let's just call it what it is. He's coasting off a very good October. And okay, I'll say this. He's coasting off a very good first 8 weeks of the season. We'll give him that. First 8 weeks of the season. Because his last 4 were not good. His first 8 weeks and then the bowl game. Did not have a good November. That really does stand out. So Fandy Dandy says Pavia was only 50% after the Kentucky game and still only lost to Texas by 3 and LSU by 7. Again, though, the LSU game, one of the reasons they lost was he wasn't that great in. Texas game, you're right, but like I said, that was October. So we have to point that out. I just think that Pavia was volunteering a lot of trash talk and then tries to pretend that he's not a part of it or was above it. And I just don't think that's the smartest way to go, honestly, because again, just own that you're trash talking. Own it. You want to say you're going to run the state of Tennessee? Fine. I can call you delusional. I will. I did. And I would again. I would call you, the reason I ridiculed him for the Netflix docuseries wasn't that he did what he did or that he said what he said. Was he said it knowing this was going to be big for the series because they knew they were being filmed, by the way, and the same with Clark Lee. And then he said it in the interview, in the confessional afterward. That's what's so ridiculous about it. He wanted it out there. Fine. You want it out there, fine. But you better own it when you get it out there. And it didn't seem like he wanted to own it too well, if we're being honest. I think that's the one issue with Diego Pavia is he really clearly didn't want to own what he was saying. And how well will he perform this year? We'll see. Look, I'm criticizing the way he ended the season, but Diego Pavia did his part to get Vanderbilt to 10-3 last year. Okay. If it wasn't for a weird defensive collapse, they beat Georgia State. They should have beaten Missouri, and they almost beat Texas. The Texas game wasn't as close, I think, as many people think. I think Texas was always going to win that game. However, Georgia State, Missouri, Vanderbilt should have won both of those games. They should have finished last year 9-4. I really do believe that. The Georgia State game was the craziest one. That was just the flukiest loss possible. That's honestly, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, given how Clark Lee also volunteered this trash talk, you should be concerned because Clark Lee's calling is defense. To let that happen at the end of the game was a big concern. Portions of the program are brought to you by Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live your life to the fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. PeakIVHydration.com. Link is in the chat. All right. It's time for the stat of the day. And the stat of the day is brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. Walk in and say, hey, Bo, Off the Hook Sports sent you. QualityTirePros.com. Stat of the day is this. Tennessee has an open competition quarterback battle right now, involving a senior in his final year of eligibility in Joey Aguilar. The last 2 times they had a quarterback battle involving a senior in his final year of eligibility, it did not go well for them. I'm obviously talking about 2018 with Jared Garantano and Keller Chris battling for the starting role, and 2005 with Rick Clausen and Eric Ainge battling for the starting role. In both instances, they won 5 games. They went 5-7 in 2018. They went 5-6 in 2005. More notable, both Clausen and Chris were transfers. Clausen had transferred from LSU. Chris had transferred from Stanford. Another semi-quarterback battle, because the favorite to win the starting job lost it in fall camp, was in 2004 with Chris Leak, Rick Clausen, Eric Ainge, and Brent Schaefer. Chris Leak was the favorite to start. Eric Ainge and Brent Schaefer come in, and they immediately win the co-starting roles on the first day of fall camp, and Leak's relegated to the bench. Leak was a Wake Forest transfer. I didn't include him in this group because I don't think there was ever a fair shot. I think Leak was always going to lose that starting job the minute Eric Ainge and Brent Schaefer came in. So I don't count that one, even though Tennessee did go 10-3 win the SEC East that year. When we come back, we're going to talk about college football red zone. And that'll be Bank on it. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports. We're going to talk about what that means in just a second.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer.
Right now, get 0% APR, 0 down, and 0 payments for 90 days on select models, plus 2 years complimentary maintenance.
Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to All the Hook Sports. Portions of the program are brought to you by the UPS Store Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated, 10629 Hardin Valley Road. We close out the show with some news surrounding ESPN and the NFL Network. After ESPN acquired the NFL Network, which will include NFL RedZone, Roger Goodell is reportedly looking into having a red zone channel for college football. Goodell on ESPN Sports Center said yesterday, quote, "It'll continue to be produced right here in this building. It will be the NFL red zone. I don't think fans will see any difference to that. Obviously, in the context of that, though, ESPN purchased the red zone name, and they will be able to utilize that for other sports, college football and other things. And I think that could be an exciting thing for our fans also to see a red zone, maybe in college football or other sports. That's something that they now own and have the ability to do that. But as far as red zone, NFL red zone, there won't be any changes for our plans." Now, for those who don't know, this isn't something new. For those who are unaware, NFL red zone is, and everybody's aware, but I just want to point this out just in case people aren't aware. It's a channel with the NFL Network that you can go to on Sundays, and basically they cut to any game where teams at the red zone. That's the philosophy. Whichever team's in the red zone, they cut to that game, and if nobody's in the red zone, they cut to the game with the team closest to the red zone, or the team driving. That's how they do it. They just cut to the biggest moments. They basically cut to the game where the stakes are the highest in any moment. Now, it's not like ESPN hasn't done this before with other sports, to be fair. They've done coast to coast with the NBA. Who remembers NBA coast to coast on ESPN too? Where they would just cut to games real quickly with things that are going on. I don't know if they've ever done that for baseball. That would be borderline impossible to do with baseball. Maybe runners in scoring position with baseball. They cut to a game where a runner's in scoring position. They could potentially do that, but I don't think that would work. I think the biggest move for ESPN Red Zone with college football would really increase their value in what they're getting out of the SEC specifically. Now, the SEC, I don't know if there's some negotiating tool, but if there is, I think the SEC should do some negotiations with ESPN if ESPN is going to carry their games on RedZone, because spoiler alert, ESPN can't carry every games on RedZone. And this is where I'm coming with this. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Member FDIC, life made better. College football RedZone will not work the same way NFL RedZone works for multiple reasons, and I will explain why here. This will be Bank on it. Again, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Member FDIC, life made better. Bank on it. College football RedZone will not work like NFL RedZone and can't work like NFL RedZone.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
There are 3 problems with college football RedZone that would make it unable to work like NFL RedZone. The first is ESPN would not be able to broadcast all the games. They don't have rights to Big Ten games, and the Big Ten would not give away those rights for free. So ESPN just can't broadcast those games on RedZone. That's not going to happen. That's not allowed. So it would specifically only be the SEC. I believe Big 12 and ACC have deals with them too, but it would have to be the conferences they have rights with, and they don't have them with the Big Ten. So in that instance, they're screwed already. It would have to be games they're carrying. See, the reason RedZone works in the NFL is because the NFL owns, even though they license out the broadcast rights to CBS, NBC, ABC, or CBS, NBC, ESPN, and Fox, they own the licensing rights for all of those, for the entire league. Who owns the licensing rights for the Big Ten outside of the Big Ten? You can't just put the Big Ten games on RedZone. Wouldn't work. So that's the first one. The second one is RedZone is not as necessary for college football. And this is a big underrated point. RedZone in the NFL is a big deal, and it's helpful because a lot of people don't want to pay for the NFL Sunday ticket. It's expensive. A lot of people don't want to pay to go to a bar to watch games. So they can get what they want and the highlights of what they want and just casually watch the first 3 hours on Sundays with RedZone. That's a big deal because remember, NFL still uses the outdated model. They have over-air networks, CBS and ABC, or CBS and Fox for AFC and NFC games. Those games are carried on the local network. You have to watch what's ever in your local market. So you can't watch the other games unless you buy the Sunday ticket, unless you go to a bar. And the best way to get them is to watch through RedZone. It doesn't really work that way with college football. I mean, if you get the ESPN streaming app, you're going to be able to get every ESPN game. If you live in SEC country, you're going to be able to get every SEC game anyway. And that's not just your market. That's all of the games because they're all on SEC Network or ESPN2 or ABC. And if you have CBS or in Paramount Plus, you'll get all the Big Ten games. So it's not really you're paying for a bundled ticket. And I already told you guys yesterday about how they can't really bundle the media rights deals on this. It's not going to happen. So it's just not really necessary because you can watch every game. You can just flip the channels. If you can watch every game, you don't really need RedZone. That's not an effective way. RedZone's not as effective of a way to watch a game if you have access to all the games you want to watch and the games you want to see anyway. It's just not. So because of that, I don't think it would work. And the other reason is there's too many games in college football. Even without the Big Ten. Say that ESPN just does the games they have the rights to. Well, they have the rights to a lot of games. They carry a lot of games at once through the SEC Network, ESPN, ESPN2, ABC, ESPNU, ESPN News, the ACC Network, the ACC Digital Network. There's a lot of games going on at one time most of the time. Which ones are they going to cut to? Could you imagine if, for instance, on RedZone, like everybody's watching Texas and Ohio State, so it doesn't really matter. But say Texas, Ohio State. Now, I can't remember if that game is on Fox, is carried by Fox or ESPN. I'm actually pulling that up now because I'm not entirely sure. You guys may know. It would depend on which league got the rights to the game. Let's pull out. Okay, Texas, Ohio State is Fox. Okay, fine. Let's do a different one then. Let's do a different one. Let's do let's say Alabama, Florida State is going on at 3:30 on ABC. Arkansas, Alabama A&M is happening at 4:15. Are they really going to cut to Arkansas, Alabama, A&M on the SEC network if Arkansas is in the red zone and Alabama, Florida State, no teams in the red zone? Is that what we're really going to do here? See, it's just, it wouldn't land. I don't think this is going to be as effective. It'll be exciting to see it all happen, but I don't think that would happen. Now, Derek asked Caleb, what if they did by conferences? That would help. What if they did it by conferences? That would help. So like red zone by conferences, Derek, I think that's a fair way to do it. The Big Ten would have to sell its own red zone network though, because again, they license out to Fox, ESPN, Fox, CBS, and NBC. And I think they still have the rights to their own broadcasting. So the conferences could do it themselves. The SEC would license it out with ESPN. ESPN would probably license it out on their own channel. That could happen. Sorry, I'm pulling up things I didn't mean to pull up. But Nathaniel Ken goes, ESPN 8 the Ocho. I mean, honestly, it even looks realer now than it did before the cable bundle and the cable bubble popped. It's kind of crazy to think about, isn't it? Given everything that's been happening. So we'll see how this all goes, but I'm just having a hard time seeing how this is going to work out long term. I guess it's, put it this way. You got to fill time with that channel somehow. So you might as well try it on Red Zone. But I don't think it's going to have the same exact impact. I don't think Red Zone is going to have the same exact impact for college football that it will for the NFL. I just don't think it's going to work as well. It's going to be much, much, much harder to manage, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe it'll be a really, really huge boost for everybody involved, and I'm just totally wrong, and NFL and college football Red Zone becomes a thing. But given the access to all the college football games most people have anyway, I don't think that's likely, honestly. I think that college football is very unique in its own right. And with that, and because of that, I think NFL Red Zone is just not going to, it's not going to work for college football. So we're just going to have to see how that goes. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, BanksandJones.com. We broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, tell a friend, turn on your notifications. We're building something great here at Off the Hook. Want you to be a part of it. We broadcast live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll be back on tomorrow as we continue to cover college football preseason with Caleb Calhoun. Thank you guys all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.